All right, ladies and gentlemen, another episode of A to the Show, international podcast. Today we're joined with Nick Pelletier. Where are you right now, Nick? In Canada?
Yeah, I was in Canada. I'm visiting some family on the east coast of the States right now, actually. So, I'm
Gotcha.
in Rhode Island right now, but yeah, usually in Canada.
Wonderful, yeah. Usually Nick would be staying in a bus. Is that where you usually live most of your time?
Yeah, most of the time I'm in a converted school bus. So,
In a
yeah,
converted school bus, and when he's not in a converted school bus, he's running around, biking around, swimming around.
that's right.
Most recently, Nick swam across the Canadian Channel. You want to tell us a bit more about what it is exactly and what the kind of challenge you went through?
Yeah, so it's called Okanagan Lake. It's a
Right.
lake in British Columbia. It was it goes through three cities, so Penticton, Kelowna, and Vernon, and it's 106 kilometers long. And yeah, I swam from the most northern point by Vernon all the way through to Penticton. So it was 106 kilometers long total.
Wow. And how much time did it take for you to swim all that?
Well, I attempted it three times. So the first two times I only made it halfway over
Oof.
about 24 hours. And then this last time I ran into some troubles, but I ended up getting it done. But it took me 71 hours of straight swimming. So
Oh my god. Just
yeah.
like when you came out, bro, I'm pretty sure like when you came out of the water, you just like your body's like shriveled up.
Yeah, I came out and banged out some push-ups. I had to let people know I still had a little bit in me, but I came out and yeah, I was definitely wrinkly though. Had pruned hands, pruned feet. Everything was waterlogged. I actually had a slice on my toe. I cut my
Oof.
toe while I was out there on the edge of our boat. While I was like, it got close and I like pushed off of it and I sliced my toe. And
Oof.
Ooh.
I went to get stitches after at the hospital, and the stitch just went right through my foot because it was so malleable, the skin. So they couldn't stitch it even. They just had to glue it because my skin was just so pruny. So
Wow. All the
Just apply
prunes.
super glue, man. Whatever
yeah,
works.
All right. I can't imagine swimming. The most I swam maybe is like 30 minutes
yeah.
at the gym in a pool. Okay. So what goes into like a 70 plus hour swim that most of us don't even know about? I mean, I'm thinking about food, sleep, entertainment. I don't know. How do you go that long?
Yeah, so ideally, when I was planning it, the goal was sub 40 hours. So, right around 40 hours, which is like 2 days maximum, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Obviously, I planned for a little bit longer, up to like 50 hours, but I really wasn't expecting it to take this long. I didn't even know this was humanly possible to be swimming that long, to be honest with you. So, I kind of surprised myself with it, but yeah, I mean, it's basically you're starting out with a goal in mind, and then you really have to be process oriented getting to that goal. So it's making a big list of things you need to check off before you even get to the starting point, which is your training, your nutrition, setting up your crew and your teammates, the weather, the dates, what you're wearing, like making sure everything's on point, peaking at this right time. And then
Yeah.
when it's actually go day, then it's more or less mitigating problems as you go. So it's you want problem solvers and solution oriented people out there with you, because you're going to
Yeah.
run into something wrong over that long. And it's basically just, I like to say, it's not a 106-kilometer swim I was doing, it's 106 1-kilometer swim. So the one that you just did, the kilometer, that doesn't matter. It's done. You're at the point you're at. The kilometer that's coming up ahead doesn't matter unless you get through the kilometer you're on, right? So it's really just focusing on how do I get through this 1 kilometer? What do I need to
Wow.
tell myself? And then just doing it over and over and over. And each kilometer will be different. Some will be easy or easier if you have a tailwind and it's
Yeah.
nice out and sunny. And then some will be hell if it's midnight and there's headwinds and you're disoriented and tired and hallucinating and all sorts of stuff. So
Oh god.
yeah.
So how did you deal with the sleep concept? Because 70 hours of constant swimming.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work, man?
Yeah, well, a lot of my training beforehand went into it really, if you're going to be swimming or exercising, doing things at kind of obscure hours of the day, you kind of got to train for that. So
Yeah.
it really was doing a lot of like going out and swimming at 2 in the morning and trying to stay up all night, whether you're swimming or not, just like in life in general. And it's getting used to doing these things that you're going to be asked to do on game day, right? So you're
Yeah,
not doing things that you've never done before on the day of the event. You're the same with food. Like you don't want to be eating foods that you've never ate before on the day of the event,
hmm,
right? So all your
of
training
course.
sessions, that's when you go out and you test the foods. And if it doesn't agree with you, it sucks for that day. But at least you know, hey, I'm not going to eat this on the day of the swim, right? So it's all just
Yeah.
going out there and making things work. And it was nice in the water. I could kind of lay back and float and like rest and lay back a bit sometimes. But I had to mix in some different strokes because at one point my shoulder kind of gave out a bit, so we had to mix in some different strokes.
Ooh.
But it was we got it done. So
And you mentioned
That's amazing.
hallucinations, which I'm guessing is because of the lack of sleep. So what could you share with us some of the things you saw maybe?
yeah, so probably around like 30ish hours in, 32 somewhere in there, I started to see. I like to say your mind, your brain just gets kind of lazy with things, so it takes the path of least resistance, what it thinks something could be. So it sees shapes and colors, and with swimming, your head's always constantly moving like back and forth. So while you're
Yeah.
like seeing something flash by, I'll see a shape or something. I was seeing platypuses with machine guns, and I saw chickens on my crew members' heads, and lions in the water and on the rocks, and then you kind of stop and look at it. You're like, no, that's not what that is. But oh man, and then like I would tell my crewmates, and I'm like, oh, I'm losing it. Like I'm seeing chickens and all this, but then they would relay that to my crew boat, and they would actually get kind of worried about it because, I mean, most people haven't really dealt with hallucinations before. For me, it's like it's almost cool that you've gotten to the point where you've earned hallucinations because like it's such a rarity, it's such a thing, right? That means that you've been
Yeah.
out there pushing it for so many hours that you've got to that point. But I mean, they are kind of, yeah, they're funny to just if you don't get scared by them, like, oh, why am I seeing this stuff? If you kind of just accept it and you're like, it's kind of cool to see like, what your mind comes up with, and as long as you're safe. But yeah,
It's cool how
Wow.
you called it like you earned the hallucination. Could you elaborate a
hmm
bit on that?
yeah. Well, I feel like to me, I say this thing is if you learn to accept and make peace with your current situation, you'll gain the ability to identify gratitude in any scenario, good or
Hmm.
bad, throughout your life. So, what that
Mm,
means for me is if you get to everything you're doing, you're going to be able to find gratitude if you accept where you're at. So, um, for the swim, let's say I was in the water for at that point like 30 something hours, and I had accepted I'm going to be in here a lot longer because we were almost at the halfway point, and I started getting these hallucinations and things. And it wasn't just like, oh my gosh, I'm getting these, I'm worried, like what's going to happen, I need to get out or stuff. It's like, no, I've accepted this, like I'm going to be in here for another day and a half, right? So let's make the
yeah.
most of what we have. And it's like, what can I be grateful for? Like I'm grateful I'm not injured right now, I'm still moving forward. Like my crew's here, they're supporting me, like the weather wasn't bad at that time, and all these things, right? So there's always something you can be grateful for. And I think that's in any aspect of your life. Like if you just really accept the position you're in and like
Yeah.
make peace with it, then you'll be able to identify all the gratitude and good things that are around. So yeah, I mean it's definitely more alarming for the crew members because they're not the ones
Hmm.
experiencing it. They can only hear what I'm telling them, and
Yeah, of course.
if they've never had that before, it's kind of a bigger deal. That I feel like a lot of ultra people or people who've experienced hallucinations um, through endeavors and endurance will tell you it's just like it's part of the game at a certain point, and you do kind of it's nothing that'll like detrimentally take you out or end the event, but it is something you just got to learn to work through and acknowledge and yeah, kind of
Yeah.
enjoy if you can.
Wow. I mean, that's
That's
so
amazing, man.
inspiring, Nick. You know, it's like because you the first time, the second time, right? Your wrist got dislocated, conditions were bad, you got injured. You still kept going though. You did it a third time and you succeeded and you pushed through.
Mhm.
Why? Why would you put yourself through all this, honestly?
Yeah, I think that is important too. Is having a good reason why, and that's
Mm-hmm.
different for everybody because um, I think you really have to do all this stuff intrinsically motivated. If you're doing it for external motivators, like there's only been one person that's ever swam this lake
Mm-hmm.
before I had, and his record time was 40 hours, 57 minutes, and 11 seconds at a mountain scene, and so that was my goal, was to go under that, and I was on pace for that. Every single one of the swims I did, I was on pace for it until a point where I'd gotten injured throughout, which is unfortunate, but it's the way it is, and um, so that external motivator of like getting a record and getting a goal is
Mm-hmm.
like it's cool and all, but I think I do this stuff personally because on a normal day of life, I feel like I live between a 10 to a 0, and a normal day of life, I feel like on the low end it might be a 4. Like it's kind of a crappy day, but not the worst day ever. And the high end, it's like you just see your buddies at the bar and have a good laugh. It's like a 7. But
Mm-hmm.
on these endurance events and ultras, and you swing on this pendulum of like the worst of the worst, like you're going the depths of hell, and you're just like no positives, you're injured, you're cold, like you're in the most pain of your life, and then you ride these roller coaster waves up and down throughout the whole thing, and you learn to tell yourself what you need to get through this immediate adversity and then keep moving forward. And you have to be so present focused because you can't get ahead of yourself, because how do you wrap your mind around a 70-hour undertaking in the water, right, and all this, and then when you finally come out on that beach and it's been 4 years of preparation and 3 attempts, and you finally come out and your friends or family there, and it's like these are like the best moments of my life. These are these rare moments, and I think a life full of striving for those moments is a life I want to pursue. So putting myself in the position where I was when I failed both those times was like those were the opposite end of that. Those were like the worst
Mm-hmm.
moments of my life, when it was the most painful. And what I didn't realize was I thought it would hurt in the moment, but I didn't realize the mental torment it would have on me for like until I redid it again. It wasn't something that just left me. It was like, oh shoot, I didn't get it. Better luck next time. It was like everything I did from the day I failed forward was like, okay, how could I use what I'm doing now to help me in the swim? So it's always like picking and pulling. I'd be running or something, but like, oh man, I had this thought during the swim, like, and I got through it on my run, and like, oh, next time in the swim, I'm going to do this. And like, it was always picking and pulling every single thing I did for both of those attempts. So for like 4 years from the very start of the project to the day that I started the final attempt was like all this mental torment. And it's like, that's my reason why, is because I don't want to have to deal with that mental torment again. And I want to see physically what I'm capable of. So getting to that starting point, it's almost an ultra endeavor in itself. And then you kind of just take a deep breath and say, like, when the clock starts, like, here we go. Now all I got to do is what I know I do best, is swim, right? That's a simple part. Just putting your arms above your head for a few days straight. So, yeah.
Wow.
That's insane, man.
You just set a
What an
goal so
experience.
big that was like impossible for most of us humans, and it was almost impossible for you too, you know, like 70 plus hours in the water. That's
Mhm.
incredible. Was that the hardest thing you've ever done? I mean, you've done many endurance challenges, but it seems to me like this is definitely the highest point for you right now.
Yeah. This is definitely, I think swimming in general is the hardest, like, physical act I've done. Like, I've done all sports, like, I've played collegiate baseball,
Mm-hmm.
and I played football, and I've skied and running, cycling. I think swimming is such like a technique based thing. It takes so long to get good at, and compared to some of the
Yeah.
guys I've trained with, like triathletes and Olympian guys, and I'm still nothing compared to those guys, right? But it does take a while to even get proficient at swimming, where you're efficient enough to glide through the water without wasting all your energy.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, swimming is definitely like, I think in general the hardest act or like activity I've done, and then this swim is adding so much more because it's not just a physical challenge, it's an environmental challenge in the
Mm-hmm.
truest sense. In the Okanagan, it's like we've seen in previous at one of my attempts. You set everything up for this logistical attempt, and everything peaks at this point. People's schedules, like tens of thousands of dollars for money, everything, your training, everything, right? And then we have these forest fires that just like
Yeah.
gave the worst
Totally.
air quality on the earth
Oof.
on the day that the
Mm-hmm.
swim. Like you can't see 100 feet in front of you. It's complete
Mm-hmm.
whiteout. You're breathing. It's literally like you're just smoking cigarettes, just being outside, right?
Oof.
And
Yeah.
everybody will say like, "Oh, why didn't you wait a day or two to?" Well, that smoke socks into the valley and it's there for like weeks at a time. So that's just like, it's no excuse why that time failed. It's just, it's a fact and a reality that we have to figure out different sighting lines now, because you can't look at the point that's 30 kilometers ahead. You can only see 100 feet ahead. So you need to look on GPSs now. It's like everything changes when that happens. But
Right.
so it's
Mm-hmm.
not just like a physical thing. Are you fit enough to swim for this long straight? And then another thing that's tough with swimming is if you're running a ultra race for running or you're cycling and you get to an aid station, you can sit down, you can take a bite to eat for 10 minutes, you
Mm-hmm.
can keep going, right? And then
Yeah.
in swimming, the thing is you're in the water, you need to eat. It's almost more work to eat because you're treading water just with your legs and trying to eat, and while there's water, and then the water will come into your food and you're eating the lake
Ooh,
water, and there's
that's
no
Oh God.
disgusting.
break, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's always a big
I
loop of
see.
you're swimming for an hour, you eat every hour. So you're swimming, you're like, oh, I'm looking forward to my meal, and then you get to the meal, it's like, oh man, this is more work. I gotta get back to swimming, and then you start swimming again. It's like, oh, damn,
I'm
this is
hungry.
my life, I guess. Yeah.
What were you eating? Was it mac and cheese mostly?
Yeah, so I have an energy bar sponsored called Hornby Organic, and I was eating a ton of those. And I had like a carbohydrate mix that I drink in the water every hour
Mm-hmm.
for sure, just to get like some carbs in me. Um, and then I had simple sugars basically every stop. So either like honey, gels, um, little candies, things like that. And then every so often, every couple stops would be more fats because those are your long burning fuel source, whereas sugars and
Yeah.
simple sugars are like your fast burning carbohydrates and stuff. So I'd have things like olive oils, like
Mm-hmm.
pasta, like mac and
Mm-hmm.
cheese with some olive oil on it,
Mm.
peanut
Yeah.
butter, avocado, some
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So, but by the end, I was eating like every hour for 71 hours, and my stomach was so upset and had heartburn, and like by the end I was almost kind of just eating strictly gels because it was just like, just get to the end, just give me something that was easy
Yeah.
to go down quick. I didn't want to eat, I didn't want to deal. It was just like, give me something quick and I'll
So
keep going.
how are
So
you shitting it all out? How are you shitting it all out, bro? You're just
yeah,
like,
well, like most of the times I've done ultra stuff, I haven't had to. Your body just burns it somehow. But this one,
wait,
at one
what?
point, I did have to. And yeah, for swimming, it was pulling down my wetsuit and just like being like a baby in the water and just go. So.
Wait, what did you mean by like you just burn it all out? How does that work? You just burn the shit?
I'm no doctor, so I have no idea how it works. But usually, like with ultra stuff, I find that everything you take in, it's just getting burnt. Like you're outputting so many calories, so
Yeah.
you have a struggle taking in as many as you're eating. And
Mm.
I don't know the science behind it, but it seems to be able to wait until after the event's done usually. But when you're getting into 3 days and you're eating every hour, then it's bound to happen. So
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
So you've mentioned a bunch of different sports that you perform in.
yeah,
Why haven't you decided on like just sticking to one? Why do so many?
I think I want to definitely be someone who's versatile. I think the legacy I want to leave is being somebody who's at the top of the game in a number of different games. So I want to be like in mountaineering, swimming, cycling, running. I'd like to be taking on these world's first challenges and like world class challenges, and be somebody who can. I like to take, like, I've taken so many experiences from even when I was playing baseball, and the things I learned playing like a team sport and a completely different than an endurance sport in the true, like, completely. But there's lessons I'll still utilize from baseball in my
Yeah.
ultras now. And there's things like I was saying that I just did a cycling, an Everesting event where I like went up and down a hill on my bike, the height of Everest. And I remember even just pulling like a ton of inspiration and motivation and like keywords and mantras from what I did in the swim 2 months ago. And it was just like, I'm always able to pick and pull. And probably if I were to just stick to one sport and everything, I'd probably excel like quicker at that. But right now I feel like I'm slowly stacking them all up, and in the future here they're all going to kind of meet at the peak, like further in all along in my life where I'm kind of at the top of a lot of these. And it's also just like, it's nice to be able to change up. Like I swam for a whole year straight for training, and then I mean honestly it's nice to go for a run and like a cycle and look at things while you're doing it, right? And then the same thing is when you're training a lot with your legs, like running and cycling and stuff, it's almost nice on a rest day where most people might just take a complete rest day. I can go in the pool, maybe just throw a pull buoy in my legs so I don't use them at all, but I can still get a workout in, use my upper body. Like, so I think it's just being versatile is really like, it's never a bad thing. It's definitely good to be versatile. So
For sure. And you must have like some insane core as well.
oh yeah, definitely hit the core.
I mean, to be able to endure all of this, it's insane, man. Because like I know, like obviously everyone who specializes either want to specialize in be like have a specific strength in a specific part of their body, but I feel like the core workouts are really important because they can like basically allow you to push yourself over the limit.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you like what can you comment on that? Because
So core
people,
workouts is in what? Could you elaborate on that a little
yeah,
bit?
core workouts and like cardio and just your whole endurance, your physical endurance.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, a lot of people who just focus on strength will have not the
Yeah.
best endurance. So they're usually
Yeah.
just pushing
Yeah.
through pain.
So yeah, yeah. With the endurance stuff, like I said, when I played baseball, I was an explosive athlete. So I mean, baseball, you're hitting and you're running, like running to first base or second base, and it's like explosive. Then you stop, right? Everything is like hitting, is that throwing. It's all just like how fast can you go? Explosive
Yeah.
for short distance at a time. And then I remember getting into like triathlon and stuff, and I couldn't even run a 5K. I was like, how do people do this? I was 203 pounds because it was like we was all strength training and muscle and everything. And then I remember my first year in triathlon, I got down to 163 pounds. I remember thinking like, man, I can run, like it's so much easier to run. I could bounce like a feather, and like it was just way lighter. But yeah, no, I definitely think that it's nice to incorporate things like strength and all that. These, like when I started the triathlon, I didn't have a good base of endurance, and with that is like your work capacity is low. So that's what I said when I go for a 5K run, it felt like, man, I can barely do this. Like, how could people run 100 miles or whatever? Like, I don't get it. But the more you do these like zone 2 kind of heart rate zone workouts, it's where your heart isn't, like if you're sprinting, your heart's almost twitching. It's like boom, 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 boom. So the blood just like in and out, in and out. Whereas these zone 2, it's getting your heart to like, or for me, it's like 135-ish beats per minute, but it's maximizing the blood flow into your heart. And it's not just twitching, it's beating fully each time. And that's what makes your heart grow, is staying in zones like that. And then with a growing heart, it's better cardiovascular fitness. your lung capacity is growing, tidal volume, all that stuff is growing in those zones. But those zones take like they're layers, right? So the workouts that I was doing 4 years ago for those are helping me now, and the workouts I'm doing now are going to be helping me in 4 years, right? It's like you see these effects later on down the line. That's why with people, and when they first start something, they might get frustrated if they can't. They see other people online and they're doing it and they want to get there right away, right? It's like,
Yeah.
if you're a beginner lifter and you start lifting, you might see results quick because you are going from like nothing to something, right? Whereas in endurance, it really takes a long time to build a base. But for me, once I have a pretty solid base right now, and it's really all these things like swimming, cycling, running. I stay in the same heart rate zone for all these, and then it's kind of more whatever my goal is. I'll specialize the training around that. So my heart and everything, cardiovascular system, respiratory system, all that's getting trained the same, but it's the muscular thing. So if I'm doing a swimming event, I need to do a lot more swimming because I need my shoulders, the integral muscle in my shoulders to be ready for hundreds of thousands of strokes, right? So that also includes like band work in the gym, stabilization, lifting stuff in the gym, strength stuff. And then your legs, obviously, like I go for still some runs because that helps train that cardiovascular base still. But those, like the supplementary stuff usually comes on the rest days because I don't take any days off per se. It's just like I'll do something different or I'll do it easier or whatever. So I'll do something every day, but it's so it's taken like if I'm a strictly swimming goal, then I'll do all this swimming training is my main thing, and that's working towards strengthening, like I said, shoulders, everything like that. But on an off day, I'll do a run, which is also helping me, but it's also keeping me loose. It's keeping me like getting fit still. And mentally for me, it's big. Is I like to do all this stuff because it helps me just mentally. It keeps me clear headed, and I feel most at home when I'm doing that stuff. So. But yeah, it's definitely you got to kind of tailor your training schedule and what you're doing towards your goals. It's hard to take a one size fits all approach. So you kind of got to choose your goals and then work backwards from there. So
I see. Wow. And when you're trying to do these big endurance events, do you do any kind of like warm-ups before it starts, or is it just like I'm ready, go? Like, are you having like a long stretching session or pre-workout?
For the swim, I had the same kind of stretching routine I do before every swim. It's like a static stretches to start, and then it's more like dynamic stuff. So like moving your arms through the ranges of motion you'll be in and all this stuff. And then we have it's called a breathe way. It's our one of the coaches in town, he developed this device. It helps train your lung capacity and tidal volume. So you breathe into this bag and then inhale. So that helps warm your lungs up. I've used that. And then, but I mean, it really is for the big events. It's your body knows what to do. It's just kind of warming it up. What's big is getting mentally in the zone to do the thing. So for me, that's, to me, I like to be alone. That's why for this swim, I took my bus to the starting point and slept there the night before and had everybody meet me in the morning. So I got shuttles to bring everybody out to the start point in the morning. But I wanted to go out there and just like look at the lake and just like be in my bus and be in a place that feels comfortable, like home to me. But then remember, like going back to those cue words, those mantras, like remembering all those times this past years, what I felt like in that water, like when I had to get pulled out, the like smell of pus and blood coming off my body, like the months of rehab I had to do for injuries, or the months of like wounds that I had to be fixed. And like, those are things you have to remember, because when you're in the moment of so much pain and agony and cold, and it's an unescapable cold because you're in the water and you're so cold that you can't get more warm because you can't leave the water, right? So where you are is where you are. It's a feeling that's like terrible. you're so cold and you can't even, it's like you're not going to leave till 30 hours from now. So how do you wrap your mind around that? But it's always thinking back to those times of like, when you're about to quit in those moments, remember those times, why you're there in the first place. First of all,
Yeah.
nobody's making me do this. I put myself in this position voluntarily.
Yeah.
But so like, quit complaining. But at the same time, it's like, you have to remember your why in those moments, because you will take the easiest path to immediate comfort, right? You will justify it in your mind no matter what you say beforehand, no matter what you say. When you get in that and your shoulder's not working anymore, you think you've torn something, you're hungry, you're freezing cold, and there's a boat right there and they can take you in, and they're just, all it takes is saying, hey, I'm done, and you get immediate comfort. That's great. And I had that those 2 times. Well, not in comfort. I mean, I was still injured and had to be pulled from the water. It wasn't like I quit, but I got that immediate pull out of the water, and it will never give you that feeling of like comfort that you're looking for. It'll give you immediate comfort. Maybe you get a shower, you get cleaned up, and then what you have is a year of mental torment until you get the chance to attempt it again, which is like, to me, it was brutal trying to deal with all that, because you want to get back in there and do it. You can't do it in the winter. So you have to wait a year, and then you have a year to think about that. Right. It's almost like, people competing at the Olympics and stuff, right? If you fail and then you have to wait 4 years till you go again, it's like, you're going to remember, those are going to fuel those training sessions, right? So as much as it would have been awesome to get it done the first year, I think I kind of would have been a bit, not lucky, but I was definitely naive going into it. I didn't understand exactly what this project would take to complete. I still did my due diligence and like took really good preparations, but I think having failed it twice, I took so much more, and it's like made me a better man, made me a better athlete, made me better in all aspects of life than I would have if I would have just like lucked out and got it the first time. So as much as it has been like a hell of a 4-year project, I'm glad that it's turned out the way it has. So
that's insane. And also, Nick, since you've had experience in, in your like from learning from your failures and then eventually succeeding, what advice would you give to people to how to deal with failure?
Yeah, I think don't be afraid of failure is the first thing. Like, I had tons of people saying like, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are you trying to do this? Like, this is stupid. Right? And it doesn't have to make sense to other people. It just has to make sense to you. And if you can see it in your own mind and see a way that you can get it forward, there's no right way to do anything. If you can get to a result, there's no right way to do it, right? But you're never going to try, or you're never going to get somewhere if you don't take that first step. And it really is just like, so many people say, oh, I'll do it one day, or like, I'll do this or that. But it really is like, if you have even a percentage of the answers to the questions that you have, you might not have all the answers, but you're going to figure it out along the way. If you start, you just got to start. You got to be like goal motivated, but process oriented. So like I was saying, this is what I was talking about, the intrinsic stuff. The intrinsic could be intrinsic goal, extrinsic goal, whatever your goal is. You have that goal, but you really need to be invested and in love with that process of getting there. Because if your goal is to be, let's say your goal is to be an astronaut, and you weren't really invested in that after your first failed test, after your first whatever, you say, oh, like, screw this, I'm done, right? But somebody whose like goal is that, and it's intrinsically motivating, that's the thing that's getting them up in the early mornings, going to training sessions, studying, doing all this and that. It's going to carry you months, years to a goal, right? And these could be for any goal. It could be short-term goals, long-term goals. But if you stick to a process, and I think the only way to really be able to stick to a process is having either discipline or being so passionate about it that it's like undeniable. Like, that's what you want to do. There's nothing going to be wavering you from that. So I think people are very worried about what other people will say about them too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I've gotten lots of hate online and all sorts of stuff, but it's also cool for me to see. Yeah, it's cool for me to see the people that even get inspired by what I consider as a failure, like not getting it done. And there's different ways to justify failures, right? Like even on my failures, we raised like tens of thousands of dollars for charity, like inspired tons of people. So it's
That's
like,
great.
call failure what you want. It was a failure of my personal goal. But I mean, like, that's what I was saying, finding gratitude in things. And you can always find a good in any situation. And like I said, if you're either going to get it on the first try or second try or whatever, and you're going to have that experience and then you reflect on that, and that's where learning comes in, or you're going to fail it and you're going to realize, well, I need to change a bunch of stuff, and you're going to implement that for the next time. It literally is, it's the most cliche thing, but it is a win-win. And it's like, you have to take that first step. So like, to me, it was always a lot of these trips I've done, like, people always ask me, oh, what's your route when I cycle across Mexico? It's like, oh, what's your route? Like, where are you staying? It's like, man, I don't know where I'm staying tomorrow, tonight. Like, I'm on the road. There's cartel around here. Yesterday, somebody tried to rob me. Like, I have no idea where I'm staying, but I'm going to figure it out along the way. Right. And I feel like a lot of times people don't have the confidence to do that. But the way you gain confidence is by going out and doing these things, right? And proving to yourself that, hey, I was worried about this, but I can do that. And it doesn't have to be cycling across Mexico. Like, you start small, because I started small. I didn't start with that, right? Like, I started running around in Kelowna and the place I live, and just pushing myself on a track, or like, it just, everybody's goals will be different, but it's finding what you need to tell yourself in order to keep moving forward, because there's no right way to do it. And the thing as well is, you could call whatever you want. Any of my people are always going to have something to say about the journeys you do, about your goals, about everything. But if you're able to sleep well at night, that's what you got to define your own success, right? So, yeah, exactly. If you define your own success, you'll define what your failures are. And then if you do fail, then you learn from it, and then you redo it again. And that's a process that will let you sleep well at night. And all the people who are talking shit online can talk, but you're sleeping well.
They're talking shit, but doing what, dude? All these people who talk shit, don't even have personal goals. They're not trying to do what you're trying to do. You're trying to do something superhuman. Of course, you're going to have failures along the way, because, it's near impossible to do.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say to people, like, if the lake's free, man, go ahead. It's right there. You want to do it? Go, be my guest. It's right there. So.
Fuck them, man. Fuck the haters.
But Nick, I'm wondering about when you're doing all these long endurance activities. Like, does it ever get like lonely for you? Because it's a very solo adventure when you're cycling across the country, or just swimming, or just you being alone with thoughts in your head. I mean, most of us are like so addicted to like freaking Instagram reels. Just, I can't walk around. I can't walk from here to the grocery store without, a million different, inputs in my head, versus it's just you and a bike and Mexico, and I don't know.
To me, it's
50 days. Wow. That's a long time.
To me, it's it's when I'm in normal life, I'm so obsessed and passionate about this stuff. I think about it all the time. So it really is like, I'm really enjoying my friends and family and celebration. And I always, after an event, it's the best, because you feel like you've earned it and you're celebrating with friends and family and stuff. But the longer I get doing that, it's almost like I'm always like ready to go again. It's like right after it happens, for first, or either a few weeks or a month or a couple months, like depending on what I just did. But it's nice to spend time with friends and family. It's always nice to spend time with family, and like, I love doing that no matter when. But it is like, I'll start thinking about this stuff while I'm with them, and like, I start tracking off, and then I get like in my head about things, and I start getting like feeling just not mentally great, because I'm so passionate about, I wish I was out doing the thing. And it's like, well, just go do it then. Like, plan something and start it. And then I'll do that. And then as soon as I start it, and like Mexico per se, as soon as I started that, it was like, oh man, like I have the next couple of months of my life planned. Like all I gotta do is I have a goal and it's so simple. Like obviously along the way there's gonna be everything is not simple. Like you gotta figure out a million different things. But the goal itself is like you gotta get to Cancun and you're in Cabo San Lucas. So how are you gonna do it? And it's like, oh, let's just start. And you start and then I'm never thinking about like, oh, what do I gotta do next or this and that. It's always just a task at hand, right? And it's so like mentally freeing and it makes me feel like every day is purposeful. It's filled from start to finish, and I don't have a ton of time to go and scroll and just like I know those days like where I've just scrolled all day and like you feel like you deserve an off day or something, but you always feel like shit at the end of those days, right? Like everybody does. Everybody will say how much they hate social media, but they'll all be on it, right? And I'm guilty of that too, right?
Yeah.
And
sure.
so, but it's like when you have these days packed full and you're out there doing it all day, it's like, it's hard to get, it's hard to get focused on that like bad mentality. But yeah, it's definitely like lonely in places where something might remind you of your family or memories. And it's like, you're thinking like, oh man, like you're laughing the whole day about like memories of your friends. And it's funny. It's like on an adventure. Sometimes it's like why you're not on an adventure. All you want to do is be on an adventure. But then sometimes when you're on the adventure, you miss home. So it's like it's kind of like a yin and yang type of thing. But I'm always very grateful while I'm on the adventure that I'm out there. And I know eventually I will be back with my friends and family and celebrating, but it's, it's fun doing adventures as well with friends and friends that have the same kind of passions. It's always cool as you have things that bounce it off. But one thing I do like about going solo is there's no bias in the things you do. So everything you arrive upon is a product of yourself. So like if you were to do, let's say a vacation or a trip with friends and you really want to go this spot, but you're with 4 friends who say, oh, screw that. Like, I don't want to go. You're like, yeah, I guess so. But like on a solo trip, it's like, no, you're doing what you want. Everything you do, like every decision you make, even if it's a bad one and you screwed up and something's gone terribly wrong, you're like, well, who do I have to blame for this? It's me, right? So everything that you come upon, it's all biased to you. And that like, it paints the trip how you want it to be told and how you want it to be seen, right? So it's a very personal journey, and I love doing these solo things, and definitely gets lonely, but I feel at home when I'm doing.
You know, I feel like it really helps the living on the bus for you. Really feel like it really cleanses your mind, and it has. So Ali's been telling me a lot about dopamine detox. He's been really on this grind
Stop the
of
dopamine.
doing it.
Cut it out.
Yeah. So I feel for you living on the bus and just like staying away from all of this stimuli surrounding you has really helped you with that. Is that your dopamine detox?
Yeah, I mean, the bus is nice because it makes you simplify. So I mean, so I've been guilty of that too. Before I had the bus, I had a number of different vehicles. I had so much shit, you couldn't fit it in a house, right? And then when I got the bus and I had to move out, it was like, oh, I got to get rid of this. Like, how many shirts do I actually wear? Like, do I really need like this globe or like all this stuff, right? So you narrow things down. And I'm not saying it's bad to have things. It's nice to have things, and it's nice to have things you enjoy. But I really feel like all of us don't need as much as we have. And to me, the bus is like, I almost feel like I have too much of the bus sometimes because it's kind of crowded. It's like, oh, but you really got to be like diligent with your space in a place like that. So you got to utilize everything. So lots of things have double purposes and all that, but it is I like the simple way of life, right? Like everything is in one spot, and if worse comes to worse, like you know that you have your home, like your bed to sleep in, you have a place to cook, and you have a place to or a vehicle to drive all in one, right? So it's like you have everything you need right then and there, besides a bathroom. But but yeah, it really is just it's a simple way of life. And For sure. Still though, like I can get caught up in scrolling and doing all that
Mhm.
stuff inside the bus, right?
Yeah,
Like it's not
Mhm.
like it has force field that you can't have any of that coming in, but
of
it's
course.
it just does make you mindful. Like when you park somewhere and you might be scrolling and feeling like just shitty, and then you look up and there's like a beautiful lake in front of you. It's like, oh, what
Mhm.
am I doing? Like I'm gonna go outside, look at the stars, or like I don't know. It's just it's a good. I feel like mental cue for
It's being present, and at the
things.
same time,
Yeah,
it's a
present.
minimalist lifestyle.
Yeah,
You know, it's combining these
for sure.
two. I feel like is has such an effect on people that
Hmm.
you really end up enjoying life to the
Yeah,
fullest.
yeah, yeah, and even like apartments I moved into or places since being in like I've been in and out of the bus here and there, but
Yeah,
since living in the bus and then moving into the apartment, it's always like, oh, I've narrowed down like a ton of things. Like my room's a lot more uh, like I got just what I need, and my one thing's bikes. I got a ton of bikes. I got
Mhm.
bikes will take up most of my room, but yeah.
What do
you
you
have
need
like a
him?
bike for every country you've been to.
Not country, but I got a gravel bike for my trekking, and I got a mountain bike. I got a racing road bike, and then I just got like a rider rip around road bike, vintage. So
Oh.
yeah, lots of bikes.
Wow. I mean, Nick, you live a really unconventional life in terms of most of us, right? And I mean, you chose it yourself, though. No one forced you to do it.
Yep.
You know, you're really smart. You could have a regular job, live a normal 9 to 5 life, but I'm curious as to like your adventures and what do you tell yourself, to keep you on this path of keep pushing yourself forward. I mean, you mentioned mantras a few times, and I'm curious, like what do you tell yourself on a daily basis and before an adventure that makes you so hyped up for it?
Yeah, well, to me it's like experience is the most valuable thing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I think back on the days of my life where I've been like the most happy, or the memories where I have the fondest memories. It's always like experiences that were like me achieving something I didn't think I could do,
Wow.
overcoming like adversity, or it was celebrating with friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
And doing these things is quite often both of those come as a product of that. And I think it's just exciting for me to think about who we were as people, like way back in the day when we didn't have all the luxuries of modern life, and they still had that same sense of like adventure and exploration, and like what's around the next bend, like what's over that mountain, like I wonder if I can swim across that lake, what's over there, what's on that side, like could it help my family, and all this and that, right? And I feel like we still have that ingrained deep within us. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's a reason lots of people like hiking or being outside or swimming or kayak, like it's anything, right? That's still in
Yeah.
us all. And I think to me, I just am somebody who's a perfectionist in my own life, and I have big goals for myself. And I think the biggest goals and biggest highest you can take this is looking at the world at a global stage, and seeing it as a canvas, and like what could I create on it. And my career is going to be lots of different colors and flavors of different variety of activities and landscapes and everything. But
Yeah.
that's why I want to be so versatile. I want to be somebody who you could drop in any location and they'd be able to figure it out, right? Like throw me out of a plane, I'll be able to skydive down. Land me in the water, I'll be able to swim to shore. Land me in the desert, I'll be able to run there. Give me a bike, I'll be able to get back. Give me like anything, right? Let me climb a mountain, I'll be able to do it. I just want to be the most versatile person I can be, and I want to test myself and what I think I'm capable of. And my testing grounds is the world. So that's kind of what
Wow.
excites me. So my biggest problem is I have trouble committing to which one I want to do, because
Mm-hmm.
as my goals get bigger, it starts to get more money and funding with
Mm-hmm.
things you need, and then the time commitment gets bigger. So you're looking, instead of 50 days across Mexico, it can be getting into the 3, 4, 5, 6 year long range. So or
Oh wow.
months, and then year, like up to a year. So like you never know. So it's just weighing your options, and for me, a lot of the things I do, it's either like a long form style expedition like Mexico, where it's day after day after day, but you have some rest in the evenings, or it's like a all out, give it go, 1, 2, 3 day event like the swim, which you would like train and prep for, and then that's the day. You can do a few more of those a year, but like the longer form expedition ones, usually only 1 or 2 of those a year, right? So it is just figuring out and then working with brands and sponsors and people who are helping you fund the thing. So because it's not making all that much money living in my bus. So.
Wow.
But you know,
What
the
do you think,
minimalist
Sagan?
approach doesn't need it. You know, you just live life and enjoy like the things by taking what you need. You don't want much. You don't strike me as a person who goes for what he wants more like he what he needs, so that
Yeah,
to
to
support
me
him
it's
enough
like,
to achieve his goals.
yeah, to me it's like, I think this is for anybody. You look at the lifestyle you want, and you have to work backwards with that, and your job depends on that, your spending habits, your quality of life, where you live, everything, right? So if I
Yeah.
wanted a big house and I wanted fancy, like a nice car, and I wanted to have a nice, like a super nice watch, and be able to go spend money at a club every weekend and stuff, my job would have to reflect that, right? So I wouldn't
Yeah.
like I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. Like if that was truly my goal, I would have to look at a different option. And that's, if that's whatever people's goals, it doesn't matter. Whatever your goal is, it's not bad to have nice things. If you want to have a nice place, your goal's going, or your job's going to have to reflect that, right? For me, like I said, the most important thing to me is these experiences, and it's getting them on video, on photo, like so I can relive them or show my kids one day, or like be able to inspire other people. So that's where I'd like to invest and spend my money, is being able to document these challenges as well as fund the challenges. And I just get so much from these things, like even that cycling, the Everesting thing I just did like last week, where you climb up and down the mountain on the bike to hike Everest. It was, since the swim I've still been training. It's been 2 months or 2.5, whatever, but I was feeling just like I want another goal. I didn't really want to commit to a big thing yet, but I was like, I always get nervous for these things too. It's like, oh, do I really want to cycle all day? It's like, man, when you're doing it, it's like you would rather be nowhere else. So just like commit to it and do it. So I just went out and did it. And I always take so much from one single day. It's one day of your life, literally a 1 24-hour day. And you might struggle the whole day. And it's going to be like that type 2 fun where it's terrible in the moment, but you're going to take so much from that single day. I took more from that one day than I have every single day since my swim. So for the past 2.5 months, I've taken more from that one day than I have.
Right.
And that's like the type of learning you're not going to learn in schools. You're not going to learn from anybody telling you it on a motivational thing. It's like the motivation comes to say, like, getting you to the starting point, right? That's what's going to, those motivations and things will get you to. It's like, if I can be a motivation for somebody to put their shoes on and start, my job's done. Then it's up to you to like figure out how to motivate yourself to keep going, because that's your journey. That's your process. Right. So yeah, I feel like doing these things is just an investment, that it's like expedited living. You jam all these experiences into one day. Like if you were to do an hour cycle, let's say, and you're pushing yourself, you're climbing a hill, you're going down, you're going to have these like little, oh, I got to get up here, go down, like, oh, I got to push myself here, I can relax here. And like all that's fit into 1 hour, right? And that's usually one day. But if you do that for 24 hours, you have 24 times that, right? That's like a month worth of training almost, or a month worth of those learning experiences. And it's just in one day. It's the same day every one of us has, right? But you could invest, or you could spend one day where everybody else would be doing whatever, and invest that one day towards that. You might not be able to see them or other people or everything, but you're going to get 24x your return on investment on that one day, right? So that's the way I look at it. So that's why like trips like the Mexico, and things. When
Mhm.
you're doing those 1 days every day, day after day for months, it's like I feel like I've lived 10 years in a trip like that. So.
Wow. Okay, Nick. So what's next for you? What's the next adventure we're looking forward to?
I'm not sure yet, actually, to be honest. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Cycle
I
of
don't know if
continent.
I want to commit to. I think the next one, I'm not going to say it's going to be like which discipline, but I want to commit again to like a style like Mexico,
Mhm.
like a day after day after day style
Mhm.
expedition. So whether that be
Yeah.
swimming, cycling, or running, I'm thinking that's what it's going to be. So
All
now
right.
just to pick what it is.
And
You,
how can we help you? How can the viewers help you? How can uh,
Yeah. So
carry forward?
yeah. So we're just following me and on NP Adventure is my Instagram, just NP Adventure. I got
Mhm.
my website is just nickpelletier.ca, and then there I'll be able to post like I film everything, so all my videos from everything will be on there. And one thing we're doing right now is we're working on a documentary for the swim. It's called Sink or
Yes.
Swim. So we're
Mhm.
trying to get
nice.
it on Netflix and things right now. So we're just talking with some people. But again, if anybody has connections or anything, it's always helpful. But yeah,
Yeah.
right now we're just working on some getting some funding and things for that. So yeah, but
Well,
No,
yeah,
this
best of
sounds
luck,
amazing,
Nick.
man. Best of luck.
yeah.
Honestly, yeah, it's so
Netflix, come on,
inspiring.
give this guy his special.
Come on.
Do it. Just give it
Yeah,
to
well, I
him.
thank you guys for having me on. It's nice
Yeah.
talking with you.
Nice
Oh, it's
talking
nice
to you,
talking to you,
Saeed.
man.
Oh
And
yeah.
I guess this is how we sign out. Guys, this has been another episode on A2 The Show with Nick. Nick has been sharing us with us all his adventures, and keep tuned on his Instagram page, his YouTube, his website, so that you can see more of his crazy adventures. Hopefully, he'll also do another cycling trip in the Middle East. Maybe, you never know. When it's safer, of course.
Yeah.
And you guys know how we do this. Salute and cover the camera. Peace.
Out of here.